Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to make a video to show you how I made this very easy Halloween banner with paper flowers. So let's get started. So first I want to give a little bit of an explanation before I move on to the next few steps. And so I think this will be clearer once I show you what I did. But first I think I should give you a visual explanation. So what I did with this is that I had a font that I used to cut out this W in white. If I turn around, you'll see it's reversed, but I had this W in white and it has this spider web pattern here. So that is its actual font. And what I did to get this W, as you can see there's no spider web or anything in it, is that I created what is called an internal offset, and that is specific to the Silhouette Studio software that I know of. And one thing you can also do is you can create a shadow around this W, this white W, if you imagine that this black W was not here. That's called an offset, and in Silhouette Studio you can create that very easy. However, I think in CRICUT Design Space it takes several steps to get there, and it's not a built-in option into it's not a built-in option in the CRICUT software. So I will explain how I do it in Silhouette Studio because I have a Cameo, and I can explain it how. And I can also explain how you can do this in CRICUT Design Space, at least one way that I can show you very easily. There are several ways. You can use different programs like Inkscape or different methods to create that shadow. But specific to what I'm talking about is how you can create it with this internal offset, this black here. So that's one way that you can make this very easily. However, it takes several steps. This is why I'm going to be talking a lot with a computer screen, showing you how you can make this. And so hopefully these techniques are something you can use in future projects, and hopefully it helps. So bear with me. I'm going to go switch over to the computer screen now. Alright, to start, we want to go to the website called dafont.com, and if you've never used this website, it's a free website that you can use to download fonts for free that are for use, for personal use. And so I'm going to go to the search bar here on the top right, and I'm going to type in Halloween. It should pull up Halloween fonts. I like it because there's a lot of themes sometimes to some of their fonts, like Easter or Christmas, and so it pulls up some really unique fonts. You'll see that there's a results for 30 fonts. You can go through and see if there's a font that you like. I personally go for the CF Halloween font because it's thick. The alphabet letters are thick, and if there is like a web here, it's not too delicate, so that when I use my Silhouette Cameo to cut out the alphabet letter, it won't be a nightmare to work with. So in order to download, just go to the right hand side, click download, save it to your downloads folder. And in order to install the font, at least on a Mac, all you need to do is just find the file, double click, and install the font. You should restart any program that you're using with the font so that it can load up that font. And so I have that downloaded. I have that downloaded, and I have it ready to go on my Silhouette Studio software. And I use Silhouette Studio because I have the Silhouette Cameo. And as I discussed, this whole process will be a little bit different if you have a CRICUT, but I do have options for you that I find are fairly easy, and so I'll talk about that later. But I'll move on with using my Silhouette Studio software. So what I do is I'll go over to the text option, and then I'll type in W. I want to make sure that I type in a capital W because the font only works for the capital letters. I'm going to find the CF Halloween font, hit enter, and then I want to change the font size to 500 point. That'll give me a nice big W. And so I'm going to move this down onto my mat, and you'll see that it has this W with the spider webs, and I've chose a W because some of the other letters don't have the web, and so this one's a little more intricate. I wanted to show something that is more than a plain letter. And so when I make my banner, and this can change for whatever colors you want to use, I wanted a white border or sort of a white shadow around a black letter. And the way that I wanted it was that I wanted an internal offset. And in order to do that, I can first, this is optional, I am not actually filling in the color with I'm printing that color at all. I'm just going to cut the W out of white cardstock. But what I can do is just fill it in with white so that you can see it better. You can also turn off the grid, as I don't need that. So here's my W, and I want to create that black internal offset in this letter. I want it to be a shadow inside rather than on the outside. So in order to do that, I go over to the right hand side, I go to the offset options, and you see I have regular offset. I'll show you what it looks like when you can just do a sort of shadow, and you can see there's cut lines for a shadow that showed up around the W, and you'll see that I can play around with the distance of the offset that creates a thicker offset or shadow. Now I don't want that. I want the internal offset. I wanted to keep the letter as it is, and then I want that internal offset so you can see that it created cut lines in the middle of this letter. And I personally wanted it at 0.15 distance, and I didn't do this in my regular steps, but it helps to show you what it looks like. I can fill in this internal offset with black, and so this is actually what my letters look like. It has a white border, and then the webbing actually looks white because it's cut out of white cardstock, and then I have the W so it stands out. And this is the way that I wanted my offset. So in order to cut out the shape with my machine, I would cut this W first out of a white cardstock, move this off the mat, put this on, and this would be cut out of black cardstock. And so this is very straightforward if you have a Silhouette Cameo and you use this software. The tricky thing is if you have a CRICUT. And so if you have a CRICUT, I can go to the software. With a CRICUT, so I can load up a font just fine. So can go to text, capital W. And since I already have the CF Halloween font loaded, you see that the font already showed up, and I could set it at 500 font size. And this is fine. However, there isn't an easy way to create that offset. Maybe you don't want an offset, and so that would be great. If you did want an offset, there's several steps that you may have to take in order to get that. And I've seen different ways, and you can use Inkscape. You can save an image and upload it in a number of different ways to get that offset. I have a similar process, and it's only because I've mostly seen the shadow that people add. So I mostly see the shadow that's added to give you an offset that creates a shadow, but I've never seen it that an internal offset can be made from it. And so there probably are different ways that you can use an offset, and it's easier just to create a shadow. But if you did want that internal offset, here's a way that you can do it. Now, the Silhouette software is actually something you can download. You do not need an actual machine. So you could just go to the silhouetteamerica.com website and then download the current version for your Mac or PC, and you can actually use this Silhouette Studio yourself. And one thing you can do is, if you follow the same process, that very easy process where you upload the font, type up your letter, and then create the offset, you can actually create an image from this by first getting your letter. So this would be that internal offset. I'm going to show it like that again. So again, this is the internal offset. This is more difficult to make in the CRICUT. So you see a regular offset would have that border around the whole entire W, but I wanted that internal offset, and I'm repeating myself so that it can be kind of clear. So this W here, the way it looks, is a little more difficult to make. I haven't seen another tutorial for CRICUT doing that, and so here's just an option. once you follow the steps and you get this internal offset here, you can actually go to File and then Print. And what that'll do, if you have a Mac, I'm not sure about PC, but if you have a Mac, you can go to the PDF option and then you can say Open in Preview. This will give you what it looks like if you were to actually print this. Now, I don't want to print it, I want to get that shape. So this is what it's supposed to look like, and what you can do on a Mac is you can take a screen capture. And so you can hit Command, Shift, and 4. It'll let you select part of the screen. So I'm going to select the part with the W, like that. And unfortunately, I have my highlighter on for the cursor, so that will be in the image, but you're likely not to have that cursor, so it won't be in the screen capture. So then what I need to do is just go to Safari or any web browser, and then go to CRICUT Design Space, and then you can upload that screen capture that you just did. So I'm going to go to Upload and find the image. So here is that image of the screen capture that I made. You'll want to go to Simple for the high contrast colors. You want just this W, you don't want any of the background. Hit Continue. You can delete off that background that we don't need. Hit Continue again. And then you want to save it as a cut image. You can do print and cut, but it's just black letters, so, or any letter that you like, what color. It's not necessary, it's just one color, so I don't think you need the print and cut. So then you hit Save. You can also change the name. I didn't. It's going to be labeled what it automatically labels that screen capture. Okay, so once your image is uploaded successfully, I did it a number of times, but here is the image that I just was working with. You insert that image here. It's going to show up large, very, very large. So you can mess with that just to get it smaller, and then you can play with it later. So this W, it came out when I so this W, when I started, it was just black, and so let me just turn it white so you can see what it looks like. They will provide an outline, and this is that W internal offset that I created through Silhouette software, and I brought into CRICUT Design Space. So you'll have to play with the sizing to get that internal offset right. It may be a little bit off, but that's okay. And so once it's positioned, you'll see now you have that black internal offset with the white shadow. And I like the way this looks, so this is what I was after. If you don't want to go through that whole process, you could just skip it and just either cut out the letter as is or create that offset shadow. And I just thought this added a great way for this Halloween banners to have this webbing white rather than having a shadow behind the white. So I thought it popped more. So in order to cut this out, you'll just cut this piece out in white and this piece out in black, or whatever colors that you have, and it should be an easy process from there for all of your letters. And so it can be a hassle if you have a lot of letters, but I think the outcome is worth it. Now, if you don't have a cutting machine and you still want to make these fonts, there is an easy way to do it with a shadow. And this may be a no-brainer, but I'm providing the option because there are so many ways that you can still make what you want without having a cutting machine. So the thing to do is to go into Word document or any sort of word processing system that you have, and you want to go to Home. And again, I have the CF Halloween font loaded. I want it at 500 font, and I chose 500 because that's arbitrary. You can change the sizing of the letters. I think this looks great with a large letter, and I wanted this to be a large banner, so which is why I chose 500. Again, I'm going to print out that W, or type out that W, excuse me, and then I'm just going to print out this letter W from my printer. I'm going to print on cardstock so it's thick. And then what I'm going to do is, instead of having the internal offset, my options are limited, but I will cut around this letter while leaving a little bit of a border so that there's sort of a white shadow. And so it's still kind of similar, a little bit different, but it still works perfectly, I think. So I'm going to go and switch to one more thing. In my Silhouette Studio software, I am using my template 8, or my mini template 8 flower. It's just a little template that I created for little flowers, and I find that these are very easy to put together. And you can use any rolled rose, sorry, I can't say that fine, a rolled rose, and so a flower that's rolled up to create that rose. You can use any sort of small flower. You can use any silk flowers that you might find, or any of the scrapbooking flowers that you might want to use. But if you're using paper, any little flower will work. I'm using this template specifically because when I make it, I think it looks like a mum, and for fall that's a very popular flower. So what I did was I took 2 of these. These are the same exact size. This is at a 2-inch width, this is at a 1.75 width, and this is at a 1.5-inch width approximately. And so I use 2 of this size, 1 of each of these, to really easily make a flower for this banner. And so I'll cut a bunch of these out for my letters. You don't have to use flowers at all if you don't want to. So I'm going to cut a number of these out for my banner, and I will show you how I put together really easily. Alright, now that we have all our pieces cut together for this letter, I've actually done every other letter. So again, you see that we have this white W, and there is a piece of this still attached. But you have this white W, and then we have that black internal offset, and it creates this look. I wanted this look. So all you need to do, which I'm sure everyone knew, is just to glue. I just use a regular glue stick. I don't like the way that hot glue will create sort of a raised bump. You can use a tape runner, and then you just put that on there. Easy. I got some glue there, whoops. So here's my W, and the way that I'm going to hang this is that I'm just going to string some twine or yarn, anything I have. I think just yarn because I have a ton of black yarn. Just string it through the back. I will just glue it and then hang it. But with the flower, this is the easiest thing. So with my flower, I have 2 sheets or 2 pieces of this. And you can use what I normally use, which is the bone folder, to sort of crease the petals. And so I just turn the petals up, and there's not much to it. I just sort of give it a curl. Now this is the smallest bone folder that I have, and it can be kind of annoying to use this. And so what I actually use instead is this tiny little screwdriver. Now I use this because I needed something to take apart some of the shelving that I purchased, and it had these little tiny baby screws. And I looked at it one day and I thought, you know, this is perfect for just rolling up those corners here for these little flowers. And so, and it fits in my hand well. I don't feel like, with this, I feel like I'm always trying to wrestle with the tool itself because it's so wide. And you just use a regular dowel or a pen. That should just be fine. And I just give it a little turn. I get a lot of emails about what this tool is. It is a bone folder. Bone as in, like, I have 206 bones in my body. And it's a folder, bone folder. And I generally recommend that if you don't want to purchase one, you can use anything that you like. And my favorite ones that people have told me what they use is actually a butter knife, which I think is fairly similar in shape. And some people have used hair curlers to turn the flowers over and give it that sort of curl on the paper. So any any method of curling it is fine with me. I don't think you need a special tool. When I first started, I thought, you know, I have this tool here, let me see it and if I can use it. And I like the way that it curled the papers for the flowers, and so I just stuck with it, but there's no necessary need for that specifically. So I'm talking and I'm doing this, but this actually goes by really quickly when you're focused. Just give it a little turn. I do one side first and then the other side, and I usually do maybe 2 or 3 at a time, so it makes it really quick. And because you're not having to cut the petals, whoops, because you don't have to cut the petals or anything, this just goes by quickly without having to pay too much attention to it. And then all you need to do is just glue them together. So I add a little bit of glue to the bottom. You can use hot glue here, or you can just use this glue stick. And what I do is I like to bend the petals a little bit closer towards the center. And I would normally use hot glue, but I didn't actually set up my hot glue gun for today, and so I think this will work. It just needs some time for it to dry. So here I'm just bending the petals closer towards the center. And it won't stay like that, but it gives it a nice look when it opens up. So similar process here. Sometimes what I do is I can just bend it beforehand, so I just bend each petal towards the center. That way it gives it a little bit of lift, so it's not flat, you know, 2D flat. Simple. So a little bit of glue in the middle, and then glue here. Now I decided that I would keep the centers plain. So I debated putting a little bit of a black center, maybe something with stamens, or adding another piece in here to cover up the space. I just decided that I wanted to keep it this way instead, and so this is the look that I chose, but obviously you can add in that little center if you'd like, and I think that would make it really look great if you had maybe a black center. I just wanted to keep it like a mum and have it look like that. So you can add the flower anywhere you like. You can add it here, anywhere else on the flower. I just decided that I'd do it on the left corners. You can also just add it to the string. So if you're stringing a letter, you can add this to the string so that each letter is separated by a flower. So as an example, here's the E, so you can have the string, have the flower here, and then keep stringing it and add like a different flower in between if you'd like. That's just ideas that you can do. And then the last step that I'll show you is, if you don't have a cutting machine, here's what it looks like if you print out that W. It's just cardstock. I didn't want to use printer paper because that's too thin. Your banner will likely blow if you're opening a door. It'll just blow off, or the letters will get twisted. So cardstock's best. And what I want to do is I could just fussy cut around this W, and it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm using just a pair of scissors, and I can just decide on a shadow that I'd like, and try to do my best to keep around that shadow width. So there you go. This is what it would look like if you just printed it out and cut around that to get that border. I think it works well for this Halloween themed banner because black and white, or you can do orange, you can print on orange paper, and it's nice to have that border to showcase the different colors in the holiday. This is what it looks like side by side. And so if I had made a letter out of my cutting machine using the shadow or offset option, this is similar to what it looks like. You can see the difference. I felt that this looked bulkier, so I didn't want the shadow and wanted the internal offset. But if you don't have a cutting machine, that shouldn't limit you at all. If you want, all you need to do is just print out all the letters, cut it out, and then you can still make your little flower and add it, and then string it like a regular banner. I think it looks so similar that there's basically no difference, just a slight variation. So those are things you can do to create it. I hope that provides a new skill. I hope that this video was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions below. Let me also know if you have a better way of creating that offset for CRICUT users. I personally use my Silhouette Cameo over the CRICUT. I think I've just toyed around with the CRICUT, and that's only because I started with a machine 4 years ago. I had the original model CRICUT. So I had the original model Silhouette Cameo, and so I have just gotten so used to the software. I find that it's a little more powerful than the CRICUT software, which I think is very user-friendly. So essentially they both do the same thing, and I think both of them are great, but I do think for that offset, just to even create a regular offset is great. Sometimes you just want a shadow around any of your projects, and so let me know if you have any questions down below. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.